Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserloh.
Alrighty, we are back with the Four Tire Change podcast, ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Welcome into another episode. Dawson Iserloh with you here. Exciting race at Daytona, and of course, just a complete shocker in the end, which is what Daytona is so prone to doing this time of the year, and that is exactly what we got. So let's get into it. Penultimate race of the regular season here. Of course, a little bit of a schedule shift around this time because of the Olympic break. Daytona is usually the last race of the regular season. That was not the case this time around. Darlington next week, or this week now, will be the last race of the regular season. So you went to Daytona with a ton of playoff implications on the line. Remember, there was also the Austin Dillon appeal to the appeal looming. Well, that was denied, so Austin Dillon will not be a part of the playoffs. But those drivers on the cut line who got the benefit or the break in Austin Dillon becoming ineligible, they end up losing out on that, and I'll get to that in just a minute when we talk about who wins this race. Look, early on, I thought Josh Berry, Chris Buescher, Bubba Wallace, all really strong. For Buescher and Wallace both on that cut line, you figured that was really important. They did a nice job at least getting involved in the action with some stage points on the line. They were running up with cars that looked like they were capable of winning the race, right? And, I think we saw, again, really good drafting track racing, or whatever you want to call it. I still think these terms need some work, right? Because there's still some confusion. Restrictor plate tracks is what I have been calling forever, and obviously they haven't been that in quite some time. But I also kind of had that thought in mind of, is it racing for points and racing for the win? It's not the same as like a road course strategy situation, because I think you can get stage points and still race for the win. But how aggressive were you willing to be at the end of some of these stages? I think that started to come into play. Now, look, they raced through the end of the first stage clean. It wasn't like there was any big pileup or anything. But for a guy like Buescher, a guy like Wallace, you do kind of have to have that in mind. Although I think the cars that were below the cut line, you're trying to get as many points as you can, right? So as this goes on, Josh Berry wins stage 1, Joey Logano wins stage 2, and, mostly calm stuff throughout these first portions of the race, although you saw a couple little boil overs there, and then everything kind of breaks free in this third stage. But to begin stage 3, it's another thing I had in my notes, 9 of the top 10 cars to start stage 3 outside of the playoffs. So, a win was going to be an upset there and cause some chaos. You could just kind of sense that was where we were at, and that kind of continued to play out throughout that final stage. Look, with about 15 to go, Keselowski jumps the restart. That becomes a bit of a storyline here. He had a chance to get himself another victory, help his playoff situation. He's already in, but it would have helped him with some more playoff points. But he unfortunately has the penalty there that sets him back. And then we have this situation, a couple big wrecks happened down the stretch in the last 10, 15, 20 laps. And ultimately, Harrison Burton, who was running well, and look, Burton, it's been a difficult road for him. He was fired. He's been let go by Wood Brothers Racing. This is going to be his last season with them. There's no guarantee he's going to be back in the Cup Series next year. There's a couple rumors around, whether he's going to be going back to the Xfinity Series or the trucks or trying to find one of these last remaining open Cup rides. But it's no secret. He was really bad with Wood Brothers Racing, and that team's been better in the past, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason with Harrison, who, look, I didn't know if it was going to be a slam dunk, but I thought Harrison was going to do fairly well. Like, he had a really nice run in the Xfinity Series, and I believed in the talent. It just hasn't worked for him, but he runs up front. He has a huge block on Kyle Busch there that I thought was well done. They had him below the yellow, but it was not making a pass, and he was actually contacted by Busch. He does a great job, kind of in a way out-dueling one of the greats in Kyle Busch, and I know Busch is trying to get that win to extend the streak and get himself into the playoffs. And so Burton pulls off the ultimate upset. It was a great moment with Jeff Burton up in the booth calling the race. His dad, I saw it was shades of Ned Jarrett, Dale Jarrett back in the day. It was really cool moment for them. And Harrison Burton's in the playoffs. That's the funny thing about this playoff format. It's awesome for this reason as well. Like, Harrison Burton was last among charter drivers, or full-time drivers at least, in the point standings, and he wins this race and he's in the playoffs now. Obviously, I don't think anyone's going to give him much of a chance to advance at all in these playoffs, but he's in them, and that's big for Wood Brothers. And it was their 100th win, which is cool to see. One of the great, kind of classic racing teams, and I'm glad they're still around. And Harrison Burton pulls off the unthinkable. So that leads us to the playoff bubble. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the regular season championship bubble. Tyler Reddick leads by 17 points as we head to Darlington. Now, we know is 17 points. I mean, if Reddick has an issue early and retires from this race or something like that, a couple stage points and a decent finish, I mean, 17 points is nothing. So Kyle Larson is 17 points back. Right behind him, Chase Elliott is 18 points back. Those are the three that really have a shot at this thing. I like Reddick's chances because, A, they're so good at these intermediates. Reddick is so good at them. 23XI's been bringing fast race cars. So if I had to make a pick on this regular season champion, it's going to be Reddick. But also keep in mind how important this is. I mean, it's basically worth an extra win because you get 15 bonus points for being the regular season champ. Second place gets 10. So basically a full another win. Now, it's important to be second or third, too. And so Larson and Elliott are both going to be in a good spot here, earning themselves some more points. But that regular season champion title is really important. And for Elliott and Larson, it's basically a duel, right? So if one of them has a really nice run and outdoes the other, then it's just on basically if Reddick has any issues. Or if Reddick completely falls out. Think about it, 17 points. If Larson wins both of the first two stages, which I don't think anybody would be shocked by that, and Reddick doesn't score stage points, he could be trailing heading into the final portion of the race, even if he didn't have a mechanical issue. So for that reason, it's just still, it's still worth keeping track of for sure as we go here at Darlington for the Southern 500. The playoff bubble is much more complicated. Martin Truex Jr. is 58 points to the good. He is safe here. It would take, again, let's say Bubba Wallace would have to get at least 19 stage points and win the race. And Truex would have to finish last, and then even then, so Truex is good. I mean, as long as that car doesn't blow up before the race even starts, Truex should be fine. Ty Gibbs plus 39. I think Gibbs has, a really nice cushion here. He should be fine, but certainly doesn't want to run into any issues. Don't get involved in any accidents, and you're okay. Busher at plus 21 is where it gets interesting, right? Because Busher leads on Wallace. Wallace is minus 21. If Wallace or Chastain, who's behind Wallace, runs well on the stages, which is why I think the stage format's really intriguing as well, they could run him down here. And if they do that, and Chastain, scores, let's say, even if he doesn't win the stage, but he's second and he's third, he racks up 15 points. If Busher's not getting stage points, that gap is, single digits going into the final stage, then you have a really interesting race on your hands. So, Busher's in the best spot, plus 21. And again, if I had to pick someone to win this thing here, I would pick Busher. But it's going to be interesting and worth monitoring. So, with all that being said, picking a winner for this race, interesting for me. How about Denny Hamlin? Look, he got an absolutely unfair penalty. I mean, it's unfair in the way that the rule is constructed, but I understand that the rule kind of has to be with TRD essentially being responsible for what happened with this engine teardown. How about Denny Hamlin getting himself some momentum and kind of being a feel-good story in a lot of ways when, look, Denny has been kind of the, the butt of the joke for the fans. They've not been fans of Denny in the last couple of years. Let's see if Denny gets himself a win at Darlington, gets himself some momentum into the playoffs, and from there, maybe you have something really, really interesting take place. So, last race of the regular season, let's do it. Should be fun. It's Darlington. It's another big one right after the Daytona night race. We have another exciting race, and then after that, we'll be going NASCAR Cup Series playoff racing. So keep tuning into the Four Tire Change. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back next week with a playoff preview on the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll see you.